right. Hey, what's up, everybody? Sam here with Wall Street Mastermind. So today I have Dean here with me, and
Hey,
Dean. Dean is one of my clients who just graduated from the program a few months ago, and I think he broke the record in terms of the fastest time from just when we started working together to when he got his offer. So I've definitely been wanting to get him on here to talk about his recruiting process and experience, and but with finals exams and everything that just happened, we haven't been able to do it until now. So I'm very happy that we're finally able to do this today. And Dean, thank you for taking the time.
sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And can you maybe just start by giving a quick introduction on yourself? Like, where do you go to school? What year are you? Where are you going to be working this summer?
Sure. So my name is Dean Zimberg. I'm a current junior at Lehigh University. I'm majoring in financial engineering in a program that kind of involves the core in both business and engineering. Um, I am, my expected graduation is in May 2020, so 4-year program. And what was the last question? Where am I interning this summer?
Yeah.
I'm interning at Stifel. It's a mid-market bank. I'm really excited. I'm going to be interning in New York City, so that's actually where I live. So it's perfect.
Yep. Yep. And in fact, you're going to be interning with your best friend, right?
Right. Yeah. So actually, it's a funny story. I was referred to the program by one of my really good friends, John, who also he was in Wall Street Mastermind, and we both had the same super day at Stifel and both got the job. We were the 2 out of 10 people at the super day who both got the job, which is really exciting.
Yep.
We both went through Wall Street Mastermind. It was
Yeah.
just they recruited out of our school. We both made it through the first round to the super day, and it was an easy choice because it's just a summer, and it's really kind of an incredible opportunity to be able to work with one of your really good friends. Investment banking is a lot of hours, and having that opportunity is great.
Yep. And John actually joined the program, what, like a month before you or something? Before he told you about it? Is that right?
Yeah. So he joined during the summer break. So him and I, so we go to school together. We were roommates, and he joined in the summer. So I had not known until he, was getting on calls with you while, in his room. And I kind of noticed, and he told me about it. And that's when I kind of hopped on board, kind of just seeing what he had done with, what you had done with him. It was really impressive. And although I wasn't behind in the recruiting process at all. I was kind of doing everything I needed to do. I was ahead of the game in many ways. I was in all the recruiting pools. I was, had many of my hire reviews already, but I was hitting a roadblock with some technical work and stuff like that. And John offered you up as far as, how he kind of told me how you were helping him. So I looked into it, and that's how I got involved with you.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And I'm glad you connected us because obviously I gotten to know you really well, and it's been really
Yeah.
fun working with you. So, so I mean, you guys both go to Lehigh, and obviously, like, Lehigh's not really a target school. Do you know, like, roughly how many kids from your class are going to banking next year?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the exact number, but yeah, so Lehigh is not a target school for your bulge brackets for sure. Although, there are some, it's not a target school like, your top echelon schools, but you definitely need to, that's that kind of shows how important this program is for especially non-targets and targets, but especially non-targets. People, you need to have a little more grit, and you need to put more work in if you want to, achieve an investment banking opportunity,
Yeah.
non-target. As
Yeah.
far as the exact numbers for my school, similar to any other school, it's not a lot. Like, it's, iBanking is one of the hardest jobs to get.
Right.
I couldn't tell you an exact number, but I've probably seen like 20 students having, investment banking from boutique to mid-market to,
Yeah.
bulge bracket to, I haven't seen any like elite boutiques, but, I've talked to, and everyone I've talked to has had either, you know, tons of grit, you know, sending emails constantly, connecting with, you know, my university alumni, or
Wow.
leveraging their own family connections, where there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you should leverage every connection you have. So
Sure.
every person from my school, you know, clearly had a level of grit to try to break into Wall Street, so to speak.
Yeah. And how many students do you guys have at Lehigh
We
approximately?
have 5,000
Okay.
undergrad.
Okay. Yeah. So that's, I mean, assuming if all 20 of those people got into banking, that's an extremely
Yeah,
difficult accomplishment, right? So, I mean, you guys, I'm sure you guys are extremely proud of yourselves.
right. Yeah, there's I can tell you that there's three students who got into Stiefel from Lehigh,
Okay. And
who've
you,
accepted an offer besides me. So there's one other besides me and John.
got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Okay, awesome. And then can you give people just kind of like a rough sense of your background? Like when we started working together, like, you know, what kind of experiences did you have already on your resume, and what have you done up to that point?
Yeah, sure. So that's a good question. As far as my experience goes, so I I guess when I was kind of entering the whole recruiting process was in this past summer, so 2018. I was transitioning from sophomore to junior year. Um, my resume was very tech oriented. Um, I wasn't like like a ton of people. This probably resonates with, you know, most of your clients, but like maybe not. I had no idea what I really wanted. I have no idea still to this day what exactly I want to do after college. But I do know that, you know, banking is one of the best, if not the best, you know, job you can get out of college to, you know, to pick up, basically to build your toolbox, so to speak, you know, to have a kind of a toolbox where you can really just go anywhere from banking.
Mm-hmm.
It's way easier to go from banking to tech versus vice versa, which is kind of what you told me. And it's really interesting when John told me about your program and I looked into you, that you have a career path from banking, from tech banking specifically, to big tech. So from Wall Street to Silicon Valley. And my resume,
Yeah.
when I met you, was very tech oriented. It was very Silicon Valley oriented. And I was actually, when I was, but when we met, I was in the recruiting process for Apple, which is invite only. And, you know, I was recruiting heavily for big tech. But aside from Apple and your top big tech, you know, besides FANG, you know, the recruiting timeline for big tech is way far in advance compared to banking. So, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, like a lot of the big tech firms are looking at, you know, January, February, first summer 2019, you know, January 2019, February 2019 for those jobs, whereas banking is looking almost a full year in advance,
Right.
trying to poach students. So, although, you know, I was recruiting for, you know, big tech at the time, my resume was not too contextualized for banking.
Right.
So you want me to talk about more specifics, kind of what I'm up to at school, or kind of, is that what
Yeah,
you're
I think back then, if I remember correctly, you had done several like tech internships. You've also started some pretty cool nonprofits and just your own You started like several different organizations, but I think the thing that stood out to me was, unlike a lot of investment banking candidates, you didn't really have any like finance internships or anything like that on your resume, right?
right? Yeah, yeah. All right, I see what you're saying. So yeah, I could talk a bit about that. So my resume was, and kind of my experience has been in, I guess you could say, entrepreneurship. You know, and many times, many interviews, I kind of go in and say, like, I'd call myself an entrepreneur in a way, a self-starter, which is still who I am. And I've founded a few clubs at my school. Specifically, I started a fintech club at my school, where we, you know, kind of raise money with sponsors, such as some of the banks or some of our sponsors, to get students involved in fintech, financial technology, and kind of get students educated on that and more. It's a burgeoning field, so we wanted students involved in that from my school, especially a non-target. We wanted students getting involved in fintech opportunities. And aside from that, that, as you said, I had no finance experience, specifically no finance internships, but I had, a laundry list kind of on my resume of, myself self-starting internships, self-starting clubs, stuff like that, some nonprofits where I had to raise money. And although I had an impressive resume, so to speak, at the time, but not anywhere. It was not bankified in a way. So it was in no way related to, finance. I quantified some things on my resume, but you were able to look at my resume and say, what you have done in your past, from the fintech club to, other ventures is very similar to what a very senior banker does on road shows. And I had never even heard of a road show at that point. And you were able to tell me that you were able to kind of like completely revamp my resume in a way where it was all the same stuff. It was all the same things I did, but you're able to, you and I call it bankify. I guess you call it bankify. You're able to like say, what you were doing was really raising capital.
Right.
And that resonates very well with bankers. And I remember after I completely, revamped my resume with you, and at the end of the day, your resume is just your story. So I was really just revamping my story with you.
Yeah.
We weren't changing any key facts or anything. Everything was the same. It was just kind of contextualizing it with banking. Yeah. I was able to go into interviews and say, what I've done the past 2-3 years, I've raised, $50,000 from X, Y, and Z and traveled here, there, and here, to raise money and to raise capital, which of course I recognize it as an analyst. That's not what I'll be doing day to day, but that's what, that was my first exposure to business. And that's kind of what led me to banking.
Yeah.
And bankers love that. They love to see, my resume was not, it was different. It was not your typical resume with, your typical finance internships prior to banking. It was very tech oriented, but it resonated well with bankers after I was able to bankify it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I always tell people that, when it comes down to your resume, there's really two aspects, right? There's like the substance of what you've actually done or the experiences you've actually had. And that kind of is what it is. I mean, depending on how old you are, if you're already a junior, you're not going to have a whole lot of time to go and change that or get new experiences, right? And then so the second part of that, which people usually need more help with, is how do they kind of frame the experiences that they already had, right? Like how do you market yourself and how do you talk about your experiences in a way to make it more relevant to investment banking, right? And I think that's what a lot of people I think struggle with. Or like, even in this case, talking about raising capital and stuff, like obviously you knew that that's what you've been doing, but you just didn't think to kind of tie that back to investment banking.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And for instance, I would go into tech interviews and talk about the content of what my fintech club would do. And they would love that. They would love what we were up to. And I would go pretty deep into, the content of what we were up to. But what I realized with Sam is that like, you get very, especially with something that you've started, you get very enthralled in talking about what you did. Whereas, the bankers are not as interested in what you did, but rather, how that relates to banking. Like, how does that relate to our firm? How does that relate to what you'll be doing day to day? How do you recognize that doesn't relate to what so they don't want, they don't want me to blabber about fintech, but they kind of want to see, how did you build, how did you make pitch decks and pitch fintech? And, how did you pitch your club in a way that was similar to, dissecting a business and stuff like that. So you need to kind of contextualize everything you've done in a way that's like, you only have, it's kind of think of an elevator pitch. You only have a specific amount of time in a room with a banker. You kind of have to say all the important things, but not only say all the important things, but say all the important things that relate to banking and relate to the firm that you're applying to.
Right. Yeah. And so like, before you met me, obviously you were thinking about either tech or banking. And so you've been doing you have been doing some networking on your own with bankers as well. I think I remember the first conversations we had. You told me, you've been networking with countless alumni from Lehigh, I think is the way you said it. But you said that you were kind of hitting some dead ends. So like, can you talk about that a little bit? Like kind of what were you running up against at the time?
Yeah. With regard to tech or banking or just anything?
With banking.
With banking. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of, as I said, I wasn't late to the game with with the recruiting timeline. When I met Sam, I was, I had already, the resume that I submitted was the resume that I had done myself. All the hire reviews I'd done on my own, without, aside from like, typical vault guides and stuff like that, and following the news, it's kind of, I did that all myself. And then aside from the hire reviews, I also kind of knew that, when you're kind of throwing your resume into a black hole unless you network. So I think I sent about 1,200 emails over the summer, which is kind of crazy to both
Yeah.
banks and tech. And from my, I was actually in San Francisco. I'm from New York again, but I was in San Francisco for an internship
Right.
this past summer. So I was physically able to kind of go to alumni and meet with them for coffee on the tech side. I actually met with a few like JP Morgan's out there. So I was able to like meet with some bankers, but I was obviously physically in Silicon Valley. So I was doing coffee chats and stuff like that with tech guys. And what I found on the tech side was that I was way too early. I was way too early. As we were talking about earlier. But with banking, I was kind of just on time, but I wasn't physically at home in New York. I wasn't able to like coffee chat with anyone. So I was emailing left and right. I was getting on phone calls, and everything was going well. I was getting, first rounds, but, school came up and that was kind of the big roadblock. Is I was doing that all during the summer. And, during the summer I had an internship, but it wasn't a crazy internship. It was my, sophomore to junior year.
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest roadblock was really just time. Time in the day, your waking hours. And it's kind of just like managing, this entire recruiting process should not be overlooked with
Mm-hmm.
regard to the time commitment.
Mm-hmm.
It takes so much time. I think if I were to quantify it in like credit hours, it's literally like 2 or 3 classes worth of
Right.
work. It
Right.
is so much work.
Right.
If you really, especially coming from, I don't know what it's like coming from a target school, but from coming from a non-target, wanting those bulge bracket, wanting those like mid-market boutique, whatever you want,
Right.
at least having like options of where you want to go.
Right.
If you want that flexibility, you need to kind of work for it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was. I was overloading on credits. I was running my my club responsibilities and stuff like that, and I found that I did not have time to study for the technicals, even reading the vault guides, and beyond that, I was not really able to like efficiently allocate my time and resources
Yeah.
to figure out what's important, what's not important. How do I and then it was especially tough seeing students around me, both in my school and I have a lot of friends, who go to top echelon schools, seeing them post on LinkedIn their updates for their next summer, it felt like, obviously this is kind of just how I felt, but it felt like everyone was getting jobs. And I was kind of like, I was losing steam,
Right.
especially after all the hard work I put in.
Right.
So that's kind of where I was definitely at a loss with time. And then with regard to technicals, I did my own work, but there's only so much your brain can retain after, especially when you're managing, six classes at the same time and you're managing. So it's kind of just like, and then also trying to, prep for your higher reviews while you're also trying to prep for super days that you don't even know that you've gotten yet,
Yeah.
So it's like it's a huge mess. And kind of, that's kind of where I came with you. That was my biggest roadblock, was time and technicals. And you kind of helped me with both incredibly well. So.
Yeah,
So
and I
yeah,
think to make matters worse for you, I mean, I guess this was a good thing, but right after we started working together, you got invited to these interviews maybe like a week after, they were like, oh, they were going to happen like a week after we had started, right? And so
yeah, exactly. And it was yeah. So time, yeah, I'd probably add a few things to that. Like, it'd be time, something that I needed help with, kind of, and um, technicals, and then kind of what you just said was with regard to time, and the third was like kind of confusion with regard to my career path. I was really confused with regard to tech versus bank, Silicon Valley versus Wall Street. So although the program is tied for investment banking, Sam is well versed in both the tech side and banking side. And if you're someone who's not too sure if they're somewhat torn between Silicon Valley and Wall Street, he can help you out there as well. And so I was torn between all three things, and he kind of said like, okay, he was able to sit me down and say, all right, the tech world can wait because the recruiting timeline is not here yet. What's the most pressing thing is banking right now. That should be your priority. And yeah, as Sam was saying, like right when I joined the program, I had a super day, like I believe a week or a week and a half later. And I kind of just had sleepless nights, with technicals and stuff like that. Prepping every way I could, going over, my story with you, going over like, why banking, why now, why this firm, all your classic questions. And yeah, and that's, as you said, I got the offer
yeah.
pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, like that week, I think I remember because we only had a week. Normally, obviously, when I work with people, we kind of do things in order, and we'll start with like fixing up their resume and cover letter, LinkedIn profile, which we did for you, and then like I teach them how to network. But then like for you, because your interviews were coming up so soon, we just kind of switched the order around for the entire program. We said, hey, what's kind of your biggest need right now? In order for you to be successful next week. And we decided that the biggest hole you had was your technical knowledge, right? And then also obviously brushing up on your behaviorals and tweaking your story and stuff that we already talked about. And
Right.
so I think we talked like every single day that week for
Yeah, I
probably
got to know you very well.
probably at least like for an hour or two every day, right? And
Yeah,
doing
yeah. I
doing
mean,
doing mock interviews and just kind of teaching you all the technicals you need to learn
yeah,
almost from scratch, right? I mean, you had a little bit of knowledge, but I think there was definitely like still a lot of stuff that you didn't know yet.
yeah,
And this is the thing that I always hear from people, which is like, oh, like, I mean, I could just learn the technicals on my own, or I'll read the interview guides, or all the information is online or whatever, which I think is definitely true. All the information is out there, right? But I think it's not really just about can you learn the information. It's can you learn the information in the most efficient way possible.
right, exactly. Yeah, and I remember every day that I spent talking to you that week, I had wished that I had found you earlier, and that I could have done the program like a normal client. um, but um, on that same note, I was thankful that the program is very malleable. I mean, I wouldn't recommend, doing what I did, but, it's run by human, it's run by Sam. It's not run by robot. It's someone who is thoughtful and understands, each and every person's unique situation. And mine was certainly a unique situation. And he was able to we had our first or second call was saying, as you said, what do you really need? And I kind of just told him like, listen, the LinkedIn doesn't matter. He agreed. I was already like getting super days and stuff like that. And we were able to see like, what really matters is kind of behaviorals, technicals, and we just crushed those in a week.
Right.
And it's not like, it's December now. Because we kind of just waited for this call after finals and everything. But it's not like after I got my super day, Sam stopped talking to me. It did not. That's not the case at all. I didn't. I still talk to him pretty often. He kind of helped me. I already had a job, but he helped me kind of map out leveraging that offer, because of course you have 2 weeks to you know to look at the offer that you have in hand and maybe leverage that exploding offer against other offers. So he helped me with that. So that was an extra 2 weeks there. And then he helped me kind of, I could talk about my spring internship if you want, Sam, but he helped me like leverage other look into other internships and plan ahead, and help me with advice with regard to grad school and stuff like that. So this isn't just like although it's definitely the best way to break into banking, he's also a resource for pretty much, planning out your career in 2 to 5 year forecast of kind of what's, how can you leverage your story and your toolbox in a way that will like let you succeed and like find fulfillment. And that's not just with regard to money, but with anything. It's for some people are motivated by money, but if you're success is kind of just like what you want to do at the end of the day. It's not just money. It's like, if you want to go to tech or if you want to go to banking, Sam will ask you to, like what motivates you, and he'll kind of tune the experience, for what you want to do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that I really enjoy the most about working with clients like you and my other clients, obviously, is that we actually have like a personal relationship, right? This is not one of those things where, hey, you join the program and you never talk to me or even get to know me, and vice versa, right? And so even 8 weeks from now, beyond the 8 weeks, like you said, my goal is to basically help you be as successful as possible, right? And investment banking is just one step in that process, but there's a lot more beyond that. It's like kind of just like having someone who's been there, done that, and is older than you, who can kind of mentor you and just be a sounding board for you. And so I really enjoy doing that stuff, right? And so like for you, like even though you lined up this internship, I mean, I think even after you got done with banking recruiting, you had some other exciting things lined up, right, between now and
Yeah.
start, right? So can you tell us about those? Like, what are you going to be doing?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, this past summer, I was in San Francisco and I was just sending so many emails, and I was so torn between banking and tech, but I recognized that, with either I had to send emails and I had to network. No matter what industry you want to go into, you really just have to network and create personal relationships and make people feel invested in you. Make people get on the phone with you. So I did that for both tech and banking this past summer. I sent about like 1.2K email, like basically 1,200 emails, and just cold emails, seeking advice, kind of navigating my career path, like getting on the phone with people. And I found that, I had a lot of tech opportunities that for next summer, but weren't pressing, as I said. Like, I opened up a lot of doors in the tech world just from all those emails, but I couldn't really act on them. For instance, like if you were to get on a call with a banker, they'll tell you, okay, they might say, get online and apply to this and then submit me and then write me down as a referral. But for instance, if I'm on a call with, a big tech guy, they're not going to say, go apply online, because those applications aren't even open yet. They'll say like, reach back out to me in December or something like that, which was kind of like, I kind of realized that was an ongoing pattern, and I kind of just didn't give up, but I kind of made that secondary priority versus banking. So I realized it wasn't pressing. And I kind of realized that with you, Sam. And then because I'd opened all those doors, and Sam made sure that I didn't close those doors just yet, I was actually able to leverage, the relationships I made over that summer on the tech side. And I realized that I was thinking about studying abroad next semester, and I realized that I had enough. Obviously, this is a unique situation, but I realized I was able to take off a whole semester and still graduate on time, as long as I like overloaded on credits. And I figured I had a job this summer with Stiefel, and I had a lot more time on my hand, and I had Sam to my disposal, so to speak, kind of just as a resource. So I was like, I should circle back. You should always close your loops, whether it's a thank you or with anything. And I kind of circled back to a few companies that I was, kind of intrinsically since I was young interested in. And a few of them were Tesla and Apple. And I circled back with Tesla. And they said that they're recruiting for spring co-ops and spring internships, and I was able to interview. This was in mid-November for internships and big kind of in Silicon Valley, and I was able to land a Tesla finance and accounting internship at Tesla. And Wall Street Mastermind became Silicon Valley Mastermind. And kind of helped out. Still same thing. I had an interview, and Sam, scheduled phone calls with me and helped me out with those interviews as well. And kind of was able to contextualize in reverse back my resume back to big tech, and my story kind of more big tech oriented, and was just as helpful, and kind of just shows that again there's a human behind the screen. It's like a professor. It's like if you were to, there's a reason why people, take classes in school and not everyone's taking online classes. It's because, you have, it's more intimate than just taking an online class. You're really like able to talk with Sam, and it's a malleable program. So I was in a unique situation where kind of tech opportunities showed up, and now I have Tesla lined up right before a banking job in the summer, which is going to look great for grad school, and it's going to be really helpful if I want to lateral, or if I maybe find out that I hate banking, I want to go tech, or vice versa. It will it lets me explore my opportunities a bit more in detail, and that's all thanks to Sam. I think I wouldn't have been able to map out my career as well as I did without Sam's help, and without the help of the program, which should really be looked at. The program in itself should really be looked at as a course with regard to like value prop and value proposition. Is it worth it? Is what I ask myself. And, in the beginning, it's obviously hard to tell because you're not in it, but I can tell you after doing the program and being a part of it. And my friend John can tell you for sure. I think you had a call with him, Santa, like similar to this, right?
Right.
That it is most definitely worth it, because if you compare it to the courses you take in school and college, and how much money you're spending in college and stuff like that, at the end of the day, you're in college to get a job. And this is, this should be looked at as just another course. And this is probably the most valuable course, because it's real world, and you're gaining, experience that will help you tremendously with regard to picking up a job and kind of navigating your career path.
Yeah.
With, most people, even if it's your closest, even if aside from your parents, it's difficult to get this amount of time, and the time of day, and like, unique help from someone who really cares about like kind of what you're doing, and understands that each situation is unique. And my situation was certainly unique. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm really proud of in terms of just how I run the program is that it's kind of what you mentioned, which is it's not a one size fits all approach, right? Because I think a lot of the approaches you see out there, just in terms of the resources that are available to you guys, is kind of a one size fits all approach, right? Like whether you're reading interview guides or whatever, it's just like, here's the answers that everybody's reading, and everybody kind of like gives the same answers, especially for the behavioral questions. And that's just like the best way to not stand out at all, right? Yeah. And everybody has a different situation, and everybody needs help with different things. And that's also the reason why I don't work with a lot of clients at the same time, right? Is because I need to customize the solution for each individual to kind of serve them to the best of my abilities, right? So I'm super happy for the results that you've been able to get. I mean, so, obviously you're going to intern at Tesla in the spring. You're going to, I think you're also going to find time to study abroad, right? And then, and then you're also going to Stifel in the summer. And so you kind of have all your bases covered, just whether you decide to do banking full-time later, or you want to come back to tech, you're still having fun on the side. Where are you going? You're going to Europe, by the way?
Yeah, no. So me and John actually
okay,
are going. So John is studying abroad in Australia, and I'm going to be there for a month. I was able to push back my Tesla internship and kind of, I see it as like, studying abroad for a month, so to speak, and kind of just, once you go into banking, you're going to have no time to do any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I'm working for half the year. So I'm making, really like making money for half the year, which is great.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of just taking a trip beforehand and just going to work through half the year and then go right back into senior year. But yeah, I mean, that kind of shows that like, it's definitely, looking back in retrospect on the semester, it's not the easiest semester for anyone. And it's so important how you manage your time, and how you allocate your resources. Because like it is the most important semester, I think, one of the most important semesters, if you're recruiting for banking. I think soon, the previous semester might be the most important because just how early they're recruiting. Right. But yeah, it's just, you just have to be aware and like Sam was saying, like I can give you a small brief story. Like I was in an interview, for a bulge bracket, and they're asking me, I was in a technical interview, and you'll often see technical interviews, are not just rattling off technicals. They'll mix behaviorals into it and stuff like that. And in the interview, they're like, I was answering questions, perfectly. And they're like a few questions, and they're like, all right, now give me an answer that's not in the vault guide. So that kind of shows, like, from the interviewer's perspective, if 95% of people are all reading the vault guides, they're all reading these online resources like Wall Street Oasis, et cetera, it's gonna be very clear that when someone is not doing that and is putting more work and putting, getting their information in a way that's different than everyone else's, and it stands out. It definitely does. So yeah, I think when you can answer technicals and then relate them to like your story and stuff like that, you really stand out rather than just sounding like robotic, and like picking out, vault guide answers.
Right. Awesome, man. Well, look, I'm extremely happy for you, extremely happy for John, obviously. A little bit envious, to be honest. You guys are totally living the dream, and hopefully, you guys have a blast in Australia and over the summer together as you intern together. I think that's. Right. I wish I got to intern with my really good friend. That would have been awesome. But right. Yeah, you guys are gonna have a blast in New York. So again, congratulations on all the success, right? Awesome. And thanks a lot for taking the time today. I know you're a busy man, so I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your experiences and advice with other students who are still going through the process. And so yeah, thanks for doing this, Dean. And I'll talk.
No, thank you so much. You're the busy man, so thank you. You helped me out so much. So definitely, and anyone can reach out to me if they are more curious about the program. But I'm happy to be on the call. Thanks, Sam.
Awesome, man. All right, Dean. And so everyone, that'll be it today. And hope you guys enjoyed this interview with Dean. And we will talk to you again next time. All right. Bye.